And welcome, folks, to another special edition of Overdrive. I am your host, Kyle Magda, here on this Monday, December 30th. I hope you all had a good holiday, because I sure did. Actually, originally, I was going to do the show last week, but since due to the busyness of the holidays and seeing friends and family and all, I decided to postpone it till this Monday, December 30th. So, hope you all enjoyed today. So far in our Monday Memories series, we have gone through 3 years already. We have gone through 20 years ago, which was 1993, 1998, 15 years ago, and 2003, which was 10 years ago. But today we will focus on 2008 in NASCAR, which was 5 years ago. So, now going into 2008, had the car of tomorrow, which just found some limited action in 2007. Just a set number of races. Still had the Gen 5 car, of course, they used. And really the first time that the COT was raced at Bristol, Kyle Busch won the race. That was at Bristol in March 2007. And the first thing he said in victory lane was, "These cars suck. I can't drive them. These cars suck." So, but it happens, and I'm surprised he complained. He was in victory lane, but he won the race, and that's all that matters. But it didn't matter because Jimmy Johnson with the Gen 4 and Gen 5 car, beg my pardon, that's what I meant to say, that the Gen 4 and the new Gen 5 COT car, still won the championship over Jeff Gordon. Wound up winning 10 races that year to Jeff's 6. So really, it was an interesting year for that. But going to 2008, NASCAR decided, since running the COT limited in 2007, that they would go over to the car tomorrow full time in 2008. Now, beginning of the year started with the 50th anniversary of the Daytona 500. And this Daytona 500 would mark Dale Jarrett's last run in the Great American Race. But he wasn't locked into the field because Michael Waltrip Racing had a lot of struggles in 2007. Michael Waltrip in the 55 car actually made the Daytona 500 in 2007 after a whole intake manifold thing, which wound up getting him penalized, but had to go to a backup car, made the race. But after that, I'm not sure exactly, he missed anywhere from 10 to 12 consecutive races before making the race at Dover in June. So he had a really rough year. I just don't think that Michael was prepared to run a 3-car organization with Toyota. Also, Toyota's first year in NASCAR in 2007. So, team missed a lot of races that year, but they persevered and got a couple top 10s with Michael. I think he had a top 10 in Michigan in 2007. But 2008 looked like it was going to be a rebound. But what Dale Jarrett was only going to plan to run the first 5 races, points races of the year in the All-Star race, and then he was done. So, and then David Rudiman would take over the 44 for the rest of the season. Now, David Rudiman started in the 00 car that year, and then after that 5th race, Michael McDowell would go into the 00 as Rudiman would go into the 44. So, but Jimmy Johnson, the defending NASCAR Nextel Cup champion, also 2008 was the first year it was called the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series. So, what a way to start off your 2008 by winning the pole for the Daytona 500 for JJ, of course. And what another big surprise was MWR that year, because Michael Waltrip wound up putting up the second fastest time in qualifying and got second and got in the front row. So he was locked in for the Daytona 500 after a miserable 2007 season. But some of the best stories were probably in the Gatorade duels that year, and Michael made sure that his teammate Dale Jarrett, who was not locked in because there was a whole big points owner swap with Kurt Busch and Sam Hornish Jr. Also, Sam was trying to convert from IndyCar to NASCAR full time because he ran a limited Busch Series schedule in 2007, made a couple of Cup starts toward the end of the season. So the owner points from the 2 car, I think, finished in the top 10 or 12 in points, went to the 77. So he was locked in and Kurt Busch wasn't. So Kurt had the champions provisional. And really, he had the most recent champions. So Dale Jarrett couldn't get in through the provisional. And I think Kurt Busch might have blown an engine during and won the duel, so he would start 43rd and use the provisional. So Michael did all he can do to help Dale Jarrett get in the Daytona 500, and he sure did. So, and Dale Jarrett did make his final Daytona 500 that year in 2008. So good for him. So, we had the 50th running of the Daytona 500. Races coming down late in the race, and Kyle Busch led a lot of the race. First, of course, first year in the 18 car for Joe Gibbs Racing, and also Dale Jr.'s first year for Hendrick Motorsports after leaving DEI, the team that his father built for him, and of course Steve Park and other guys who have raced there. Because that was a kind of a transition period for DEI because they just merged with Ginn Racing, pretty much taking the 15 car and the 14 car from the other team, and the 01 car, which was Regan Smith in 2008, running full time for Rookie of the Year, and also the 8 car, which was now Mark Martin and Eric Almirola splitting the U.S. Army car that year. So, and of course Martin Truex Jr. in the number 1 car. So, but coming late down in the end of the 50th running of the Daytona 500, it was Tony Stewart and Kyle Busch on the last lap leading, and then on the outside, Kurt Busch pushed his teammate Ryan Newman and blasted right past those two drivers, and Ryan Newman wound up winning the 50th anniversary of the Daytona 500, the 50th running. Just think about it. The golden anniversary. Just amazing to see that team win it. It was also Roger Penske's first win in the Great American Race as well, and a 1-2 for Penske, as Kurt Busch started 43rd and finished second that day. So, another guy I didn't mention as well was Dario Franchitti. He also tried to go from IndyCar to NASCAR. Actually won the 2007 IndyCar Series Championship with Andretti Green Racing the year before, just narrowly beating Scott Dixon out for the championship. And Chip Ganassi offered him a ride to drive the number 40 car. And, he didn't really do the best he kind of struggled, had some sponsorship problems, ran a little bit of Nationwide that year too. But really what sidelined him was he was in a really bad crash at Talladega. I think he got hit driver's side by Larry Gunzelman in the race at Talladega, and it sidelined him for a few weeks. And when he returned, didn't really have the greatest success, and sponsorship troubles kind of ailed him a little bit. So he didn't have the best success, and actually Ganassi wound up cutting his team, the 40 team that Franchitti drove for. But Dario did drive a little bit more for Fastenal, the car in the Nationwide Series. Had a top 5 at Watkins Glen. Actually led some laps at Bristol. Got a top 10. So he had a good run, but still just never materialized, and wound up actually going back to IndyCar with Ganassi in 2009 and wound up winning 3 straight championships. And then this year he had that bad accident at Houston, so he had to force him to retire. So that's just unfortunate, but that's what happens. But all in all, it was a great Speed Weeks for Daytona. 50th run of the Daytona 500. Just a good Speed Weeks overall. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to recap the rest of the season. And can Jimmie Johnson win his 3rd straight championship and tie Cale Yarborough? You're listening to Overdrive here on Spreaker.
You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side, yeah. We chased our pleasures here, dug our treasures there. But can you still recall the time we cried? Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side.
We're back after a short break, but going back to the big topics that happened in 2008, actually, Kyle, like I said, Dale Jr. left his mother's team in DEI, and really, the whole big story of 2007 was where's Dale Jr. going to end up in 2008, and needless to say, there was some things. Kyle Busch actually started out at Hendrick Motorsports in 2003 as a development driver. And actually, Kyle was with Roush Racing running a NASCAR Craftsman truck in 2001 at the age of 16, but the NASCAR at that time said no young drivers, and they raised the age limit to 18, and Kyle wound up going to ARCA and spanking him there and getting his feet wet, and that's what he did, and actually wound up winning his first ARCA race in his first start with Hendrick Motorsports, so time would tell there, so. And then Kyle worked his way up through ARCA and made a few Busch starts. Actually, he finished second in his first ever Busch Series start at Charlotte in 2003 in the 87 car, which was a Hendrick car. Did finish runner-up a couple times that year, also at Darlington as well. Didn't win, but still, like I said, he had two ARCA wins to his credit, so not too bad. And then 2004 ran the whole schedule in the Busch Series for Hendrick, and he did pick up some wins, wound up finishing second to Martin Truex Jr. in the Busch Series standings. So, but Kyle Busch has always been with Hendrick Motorsports, and like I said, he had his first full year of Nextel Cup in 2005. Did grab 2 wins, but didn't make the chase. 2006, he had a pretty good year, made the chase. 2007, he made the chase as well, but then just some uneasiness between Hendrick and Busch, and really the big story that kind of happened at Texas in 2007 was that when Kyle and Dale Jr. got together at a race at Texas, they both wrecked, and Kyle wound up leaving the track. And what happened was Dale Jr. went into the 5 car just to log some laps so they get some points, and a lot of people thought maybe that led up to Dale Jr. signing a Hendrick eventually. And then the whole thing, and then, him getting into with Kyle Busch and that whole story. We'll get to that in a minute. But then we're all wondering what is Dale Jr.'s number going to be, but his stepmother Teresa would not let him take the 8 to Hendrick Motorsports. So I had to find a new number, and wound up changing the number from 25, which was Casey Mears' car in 2007, to 88, which was Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s number. So did start out, have a big year for Dale Jr. Did start out with a bang. Wound up winning the Budweiser Shootout, non-points event run every year at Speed Weeks. And then he wound up winning his Gatorade Dual race as well. So really a big start for that 88 team. And of course his cousin Tony Eury Jr. was the crew chief. So really, he hasn't won in 2 years, so he's looking for a win. And really, just like I said, a points-paying win. And trying to see if they can rekindle that magic at Hendrick Motorsports, fast cars. But the big surprise, and I didn't expect this, was it was also Joe Gibbs Racing went to Toyota. Now, Joe Gibbs Racing, over the years, they started at Chevy in 92. They started with the Chevy. Then they switched to Pontiacs. Then back in 2004, when Pontiac left, they went back to Chevrolet, and they were there ever since. And then decided to go with Toyotas in 2008. And Denny Hamlin did win his Gatorade Dual race in a Toyota for Joe Gibbs Racing, so he won that. And then in March, Kyle Busch grabbed the first points-paying win for Toyota at Atlanta in the Snickers car. And what really surprised me, and I did not expect this, was Kyle Busch wound up grabbing 8 wins in the first 26 races, and I was shocked. And he wound up winning the points most of the year. And actually, I was at one of his wins, and I was at the Glen in 2008. So, but like I said, the big incident of the year that really a lot of fans don't like Kyle Busch to this day still was at Richmond in the spring. Now, Denny Hamlin wound up leading 381 of the first 382 laps. I'm not kidding, folks. He led all that, and then he had a tire go down. So it was down between Dale Jr. looking for that first win. It's 2 years to the weekend he didn't win the race. And Kyle Busch. But on a late restart, Kyle Busch got to the inside of Dale Jr. Then going into turn 3, Kyle got up a little bit, got into Dale Jr. and spun him out and put him in the wall. And a lot of fans weren't too thrilled that day about that, and they're still probably not that thrilled to this day still. But Kyle Busch was not very liked that year after that incident. I was actually at Dover that spring, and he actually got booed pretty bad. So it happens, but can't please everybody, I guess. But whatever. So. Actually, the next week after Richmond, Kyle Busch wound up winning the race in Darlington, and he had some stuff thrown at him, but that's just classless fans right there, just not giving a guy any respect, and that's kind of like with Jeff Gordon at Talladega in 2004 and 2007. both times. 2004 just narrowly beat Dale Jr. and the fans let him have it, and then 2007, even Dale Jr. said before the 2007 spring race, if Jeff Gordon ties my dad's record today, do not throw cans in. A lot of people didn't listen, so some fans got banned for life from there and other tracks, so that's their problem. So no, but then we had the Coke 600, and Tony Stewart surprisingly has never ever won the Coca-Cola 600. He was 3 laps away from winning the race, and I think he had a tire go down, and Casey Kane, who dominated most of the night, wound up winning the race, and Casey would also grab another one at Pocono a few weeks later in June. So, like I said, I got to go to 3 races that year. I got to go to the Dover race, which was won by Kyle Busch. That was in the spring. I got to go to the August race at Pocono. A little rain as usual. Actually wound up going down to a fuel mileage race, and Carl Edwards had enough gas and made it to the end to win the race, and Tony Stewart, same as well. Actually, I remember that race. Jimmy Johnson actually ran out of gas coming out of turn 3 of the checker, and all he had to do was just coast. So it's kind of exciting, but it happens sometimes. So, and honestly, I also remember about that race was Mark Martin probably had the best car, but he just, like I said, just fuel mileage and pit strategy just didn't work out like that. So happens. So. But other than that, I mean, the CLT was kind of baffling that year. Like I said, Jimmy won his share of wins. He got some races. And really, I remember the Bristol race was another race. That was interesting. I remember Kevin Harvick and Tony Stewart getting into it when Kevin got in the back of Tony and spun him out. And then kind of a little bit of rivalry. And then I remember Denny Hamlin was leading that race and had a fuel pressure issue, and actually Jeff Burton got by and won the race, so that was pretty interesting. So we're going to take our last I'm getting over my head, not commercial, last break. When we come back, we're going to recap the rest of the season, go into the chase a little bit, and see how that worked out. So keep it listening here to Monday Memories here on Overdrive. Back after a short break, folks, and like I said, the CLT was a little baffling that year, but a lot of teams were learning just how to work the car and see how it would pass, and it was hard to pass with. It didn't matter what track you were at, it was really hard to pass, and a lot of people, fans complained, drivers complained, owners complained, but like I said, it's hard to please everybody, just that's how it works sometimes. But going back to Dale Jr., now, like I said, he was looking for his first points-paying win since Richmond in 2006, May of 2006 to be exact. I remember the Michigan race. Now, it was mainly down between Brian Vickers and Matt Kenseth and Jimmy Johnson, usual drivers who you typically run good at Michigan, and it was coming down to a fuel mileage race. And toward the end of the race, I remember it was Dale Jr., Casey Kane, and Jamie McMurray in the top 3, and there was a late caution on the last lap. And all Dale Jr. had to do was just coast and make it the last lap, and he won the race. And he did, and he got his first win with Hendrick Motorsports. And surprisingly, it would be his only win of the year. And really, that was shocking. Honestly, I did not expect that at all. I thought he was going to win at least 4 or 5 races. Like, he was very consistent, though, up until the chase, but just only got that one win. Kind of surprising, but that's how it worked. And they only had that one win, and kind of shocked. So, but whatever. It's how it is sometimes. Another event I remember was the Talladega race in the fall during the chase. Now, a lot of chase drivers. There was a really big crash toward the end of that race that took out a lot of chase drivers. Carl Edwards, Greg Biffle, Matt Kenseth, Dale Jr. I'm not sure if I'm missing anybody else, but Jimmy Johnson. Of course, he avoided it because it's Jimmy Johnson. But really, this was the turning point in the chase for Jimmy Johnson to go on and hopefully win his third straight title, in Tyke-Hill Yarborough. But I remember at the end of that race that going into the tri-oval on the last lap, Tony Stewart had the lead, and Regan Smith got to the inside of Tony Stewart and went beneath the yellow line. And Regan Smith, I thought he won the race, and I still think to this day he won the race. And then NASCAR said you can't do that and penalized Regan Smith to the last car in the lead lap and gave Tony Stewart the victory. So I'm very uneasy about that. I still don't agree with them, but like I said, my opinion doesn't matter. It does in some point, but it's not going to change anything. But I really think Regan Smith got screwed that day. And he did win his first race at Darlington in 2011, but like I said, definitely NASCAR did not do the right thing that day. Should have gave him the win. Because, like I said, if you watch the spring 2009 race at Talladega, it will make my point clear why the yellow line rule should pretty much go away on the last lap. Because what happens is Carl Edwards went down to block Brad Keselowski, went down to the inside. Brad didn't lift. Carl Edwards went upside down, flipped upside down, went into the catch fence. So just something to look at in the future. So, but like I said, we didn't really have many winners in 2000. Actually, Jeff Gordon and Matt Kenseth did not win a single race that year, surprisingly, and just didn't happen. Kurt Busch grabbed the win that year. Kurt Busch had a really not a bad year, just couldn't find a consistency and really just no luck. And did win at New Hampshire, but it was rain shortened, so couldn't find the luck that time. So also we also had a tire debacle at Indy. The tires were wearing out every 10 laps, so pretty much it was a caution every 10 to 15 laps, or unless somebody wrecked because of the tires, and that was a disaster of a race. And Jimmy Johnson wound up winning it, but like I said, very infamous race. And I want to go back to the Toyotas, and I remember this also, as Toyotas were really, really strong nationwide in 2008. They actually made more horsepower than everybody else. And Joe Gibbs won a lot of races, and really just blew away the competition that year. And the 20 team wound up winning the Owners' Championship nationwide, and Clint Bowyer won the Drivers' Championship. Still, Cup drivers could still run full-time and nationwide. And Carl Edwards finished a scant 21 points behind Carl Edwards that year. Also, another great battle was the Truck Series Championship between Ron Hornaday and Johnny Benson. That came down to the final race of the year, and Johnny Benson had a 3-point lead on Ron Hornaday going into the championship. So that was really, really exciting. And all Johnny Benson had to do was just finish one position ahead of Ron Hornaday, and he sure did. And he won by 7 points to win the championship. So that was a really exciting race. I remember that to this day. And also, that was a race won by Todd Bodine, who held off Brian Scott. Sounds familiar? Yeah, that's him. So that was exciting year in the trucks as well. So, but like I said, Kyle Busch just after he won those 8 races in the first 26, his luck went right down the crapper. At New Hampshire, wound up winning. Actually, got awarded the pole because qualifying was washed down. Had a little, I think, 10-cent piece break on the car and wound up going a couple laps down and really cost them. And then the next week at Dover, he wound up blowing an engine and wound up finishing dead last. So after 2 races with the old point system, he was down 210 points after leading pretty much all the way through. So kind of unfortunate, but it happens. And also with Busch, I remember this at Bristol in the night race, is he led 415 straight laps from like lap 50 to lap 460. And Carl Edwards just made a little contact with him, moved him out of the way, and sayonara. And then Carl Edwards won the race, and Kyle wasn't too happy afterwards. Kind of let Carl know it, and then Carl retaliated on the last lap and spun him out, and then kind of a little bit of a rivalry, but that didn't really happen. So, but going back to Jimmy Johnson looking for his third straight championship. Now going into the chase, he was just on fire. Dominated California. I think he led 200 and some laps there out of the 250. It was just unbelievable. Nobody finally touched him all night, and just pulled away from the pack. And then wound up winning the rain-delayed race at Richmond due to the one, I think it was a hurricane or tropical storm. Can't remember off the top of my head. But so that 48 team had that momentum going in. But a guy who did not win a single race all year was Greg Biffle. Going into the chase did not win a race, but wound up holding off Jimmy Johnson at Loudon to win. Then wound up winning the next week at Dover with a tight battle with his teammates late in the race, Carl Edwards and Matt Kenseth. So yeah, Greg Biffle won the first two races in the chase. Then the next week, Carl Edwards had a spectacular battle with Jimmy Johnson. On the last lap, Carl Edwards drove it way down inside, didn't lift, and wound up going straight into the wall, but he thought, hey, works in the video games, why not try it now? So, and then Jimmy Johnson held on to win that race. Then we had Talladega. Then we had Charlotte, pretty much a track position race. If you had the lead, you're going to win. Jeff Burton wound up getting ahead of everybody and wound up winning the race. So we thought maybe he still had a chance. Then Martinsville came, qualifying got rained out, and Jimmy had the pole, awarded the pole because of points, and dominated, leading over 340 laps of the 500 and took the victory. So pretty much 05 time is on his way. I'm sorry, 6th time nowadays is on his way to his third straight championship back then. So then Atlanta, he actually got a lap down during the race, and Carl Edwards did all he could during the day. He wanted to dominate the race, led the most laps, did all he could. Actually, I don't think he led the most laps, but he led most of them, and wound up winning the race. And then late in the race, like on a late caution, Jimmy was running 12th, got back to the lead lap, took some tires, and he wound up finishing second. And I remember in Victory Lane, I think it was Dr. Jerry Punch or somebody in Victory Lane interviewing Carl Edwards said, "Do you know where Jimmy finished?" And he said, "No." He said second, and he said he couldn't believe it. So then the next week, Carl Edwards had enough gas, another fuel mileage race, had enough gas to make it, went 60-some laps on gas and made it. And Jeff Gordon finished second that year. So, but then the next week, after Texas, was Phoenix, and that was another crazy race. And really, Jimmy Johnson did all he had to do. He dominated that race. The 200 and some laps in that race, and just put a whooping on him, and wound up winning the race, and pretty much had a nice lead in the championship. And really the race, the chase that kind of changed the whole complexion was Charlotte, because Jimmy Johnson had a great day, but Carl was running up in the front, but he had a problem, I think, with, I don't know if it was ignition or something, but he went a few laps down, and that probably cost him the championship. So then Homestead, Carl Edwards, another fuel mileage race. He had enough gas, he made it to the end and won the race, and Jimmy Johnson just had enough and won his third straight championship. The first champ, the only guy other than Cale Yarborough to win 3 straight championships. So it's an interesting year in 2008. Not a lot of action, but still, there was those moments that were interesting. And really, it was an interesting year in NASCAR. Like I said, we had the Nationwide and the trucks and the Cups. So I'd like to thank you all for listening to these special installments of Monday Memories. I hope you enjoyed them. Maybe we'll bring them back next year. So until next time, I will see you, and have a happy new year.